Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, let's go through the top 5 budget commanders that you should be considering for a budget treasure deck. Yeah, treasures have exploded onto the scene, and some cards have gotten incredibly expensive that deal with treasures. That being said, there are a ton of amazing commanders and amazing cards that work with treasures. So let's jump into my picks. First up, a commander that is on the more expensive end, I would say, out of the commanders I'm talking about in today's episode, though still not very expensive at all. $3.27. Yeah, when it comes to the total cost of your deck, that's not going to make up, an absurd amount of it. And the rest of your deck can be incredibly budget-friendly, so you could very easily make a $25 or under deck around this amazing commander. A 3/4 Elder Dragon with flying that costs 4 mana and is it. When it enters the battlefield, create a treasure token. So there you go. It gets you going right then and there. And of course, on top of that, though, artifacts you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast an instant or sorcery spell. So, again, treasures are usually temporary ramp, temporary mana advantage, but with this commander, they can become permanent because, again, it does say artifacts you control have tap, not non-token artifacts, meaning that if we make a bunch of treasures, well, we can utilize those treasures, again, either for a burst of mana temporarily if we need to cast something else, but if we're casting against our sorcery, utilize them essentially as mana rocks. So essentially, every single one of your artifacts, every single one of your treasures can be a mana rock for you with a spell-slinging artifact type of deck around this commander. Yeah, this can be incredibly powerful, and again, incredibly budget-friendly. So let's talk about some cards that are right around $1 or less. First up, Brass's Bounty, just 76 cents now with that reprint. Sorcery for 7 mana. For each land you control, create a treasure token. This is essentially, well, double up your mana advantage. Again, if you have literally nothing else on the battlefield, just lands and just your commander, you cast this, all of a sudden, you've got 7 treasures coming into play, and there you go. That's 7 more, again, potential mana rocks if you're just utilizing them for instants and sorceries. So this can basically either double your mana or just give you a giant boost of mana regardless. A huge card. Speaking of that, hit the mother load, potentially even bigger. Sorcery for 7 mana, discover 10. If the discover card's mana value is less than 10, create a number of tapped treasure tokens equal to the difference. So again, discovering is kind of like Cascade in a way. So yeah, you cascade off the top of your library basically, or should I say discover, then you cast something for free. And again, the difference between what you're casting and essentially, that 10 is going to be the amount of treasures you make. So you really could make, I guess, technically, again, 10 if you had like an Ornithopter that you hit. More than likely, though, maybe like 7, 6, 5, maybe even 8. So yeah, you can get a ton of treasures off of something like this. Next up, Smoke Spirit's Aid. Again, you can utilize those treasures as basically mana rocks for instant sorceries. So for those big spells we just talked about, dump mana into those and actually cast them. With this one, though, hey, it's an X mana value spell, so you can dump a ton of mana into this. For each of up to X target creatures, create a red aura enchantment token named Smoke Blessing attached to that creature. Those tokens have enchant creature, and when enchant creature dies, it deals 1 damage to its controller, and you create a treasure token. Oh my goodness. This is basically like double up the amount of mana that you put into this essentially. Once those creatures get taken out in one way or another, again, you've got access to plenty of red-based board wipes, damage-based board wipes, take them out if you need to, and all of a sudden you just make an absurd amount of treasures on top of, well, punishing your opponents for their creatures getting taken out. So yeah, a massive X spell like this can be absolutely huge. Next up, Spell Swindle, an incredible counterspell, one that is on the more expensive end when it comes to its mana value at 5, but it is well worth it. Instant, counter target spell, create extra tokens or X that spell's mana value. Kind of like a mana drain, but even better. I mean, worse when it comes to its mana value, but better in that you get treasures instead of just getting a burst of mana, so you actually can utilize those treasures whenever you want. So yeah, being able to just make all those treasures, which again with this commander are basically mana rocks, and again, a 5 mana spell that you can utilize your other treasures to help cast without getting rid of your treasures, that is huge. That is massive. This is a way to set yourself up in a really, really huge way. Counter your opponent's best spell, maybe even one of their X spells, get an absurd amount of treasures, and have fun from there. Next up, Unexpected Windfall. Again, even just at the lower level of, just making a couple of treasures, not just an absurd amount, we can still get a lot of value. As this cost cast spell, discard a card, so do that. Draw 2 cards, create 2 treasure tokens. Being able to replace those cards, that's fantastic, essentially, and be able to just ramp Again, I do say ramp, not temporary ramp with these treasures, ramp with these treasures because we can utilize them for instant sorceries. So again, basically make 2 mana rocks out of this. That is huge. Next up, Connects Astral Hunter. Again, our commander is a dragon that does make a treasure on ETB. We can also have this whenever it enters the battlefield, or another dragon enters the battlefield under control, make a treasure token. So again, with our commander coming into play, that is 2 treasures instead of 1. And of course, there are plenty of ways to use and abuse that we'll talk about here in a little bit. There are also other creatures, though, that can help us out with that. Frost Fair Lurefish. 7/7, we can foretell it if we need to. Enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 blue fish creature tokens and 2 tap treasure tokens. On top of that, fish you control have haste and can't be blocked by humans. Cool. And more importantly, though, again, ETB make 2 tap treasure tokens. Yeah, this is something we can very easily use and abuse thanks to, well, effects like Ghostly Flicker. Where in blue, we've got plenty of ways to blink our creatures. So blink our commander, blink that fish, blink Ganex, whatever you need to blink, essentially. This can blink 2 artifacts, creatures enter a land you control, then bring them right back. So essentially, again, use and abuse those ETBs. And here we have Ganex in play. That's going to be twice as much value. So make sure you're keeping that in mind. Also, make sure you're keeping in mind that, again, with those treasures, again, not having to tap and sacrifice, but being able to just tap for mana, we can utilize something like Dramatic Reversal. Untap all non-land permanents you control. So again, dump a ton of mana into a giant instant sorcery spell, untap it with this, do it again, have absolutely huge, absurd, amazing turns, and maybe finish your opponents off with something like Expansion Explosion. Well, Expansion is nice. Copy target instant sorcery spell with converted mana cost 4 or less. Use targets to the copy. That can be very, very fun. I mean, copy your back first, have fun. Or Explosion. X blue blue red red, instant speed, X damage to any target. Target player draws X cards. Have the fun continue for you because you're going to be drawing even more cards, and have the fun end for an opponent when you just, dome them for like 40, essentially, because you've got all these treasures in play, which can all tap for an absurd amount of mana. So yeah, this is definitely a commander that is one that, yeah, sure, you can build on a very, very expensive budget, or on a budget you can build it very synergistically and have a lot of fun with this fantastic treasure commander, making the most out of those treasures, again, not sacrificing them, keeping them around, and utilizing them in a variety of different ways. But now let's move on to the second commander that I want to bring up, and this one is very budget friendly. The card itself is 13 cents, just 13 cents. Jan Jansen, Chaos Crafter, a 3/3 Gnome Artificer with haste that costs Mardu colors, essentially. Tap, sacrifice an artifact creature, create 2 treasure tokens. Tap, sacrifice a non-creature artifact, create 2 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature tokens. So it's kind of like a give and a take and a give and a take in what this can do, but at a base level, if you're just getting artifact creatures into play in one way or another, you can sacrifice those to make an absurd amount of treasures. And yeah, there might be some ways that we can maybe untap this and do it again and again and again to just have this giant stash of treasures that we can benefit from in a variety of ways. So yeah, when it comes to artifact creatures, there's plenty of great ones out there, including some low to the ground ones that actually want to be sacrificed, like Mirror Retriever. Put into a graveyard from play, returning another target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. So go sacrifice this, get some extra value out of it, on top of sacrificing it again to get those treasures. Oh, also, when it comes to sacrificing creatures, we've got Mirror Sire. 1/1, when it dies, create a 1/1 cost mirror artifact creature token. Phyrexian Mirror, actually, I think they added that. Anyways, being able to essentially get 2 artifact creatures for the price of 1, that is huge. This is basically like 4 treasure tokens just waiting for us to utilize it. And then we also have things like, Solemn Simulacrum, of course. This one is an ETB and an LTB. ETB, go ramp, go get a basic land to play, tap from your library. And then LTB, when it dies, you may draw a card. So yeah, sacrifice this with your commander. Not only get those treasures, but also draw that card that is an absurd amount of value. And of course, again, we've got ways to churn through our deck. We've got ways to get this back, ways to do it again, ways to really take advantage of those treasures as well. Next up, Loyal Apprentice. How about a repeatable way to make treasure tokens? With our creature tokens, at the beginning of combat of your turn, if you control your commander, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. Gain taste till of turn. So sure, swing with that little Thopter during combat, hit your opponent, and afterwards say, you know what, you did your job, thank you, sacrifice you for some treasure tokens. Next up, Mirror Balancer, or just make a lot all at once. ETB, you get 4 1/1 mirror, so make sure you're keeping that in mind. Lots of exciting things you can do with that, including using and abusing its ETB with a blink effect like Cloud Shift. You've got a lot of those in this deck that you can utilize, a lot of cheap, very budget-friendly ones, and of course you've got ones that can maybe even blink your entire team, so yeah, do that and blink your commander as well, because again, your commander has haste, so you can activate it right away. It's kind of like a cheaty way of untapping it, so make sure you're keeping that in mind. Speaking of untapping, though, Sting the Glinting Dagger just above $1.03, equipped for 2 mana, equip 2, +1/+1, and haste. Already have haste for our commander, that's nice though. Beginning of each combat, untap and equip creature. So again, even on our opponent's turns, we get to utilize our commander. So again, on our turn, sure, tap, sacrifice an artifact creature, make 2 treasures. Opponent's turn, on their combat, untap, tap, sacrifice, do it again, and then again, and then again. With each trip around the table, we can essentially make 8 treasures if we've got the creature fodder needed for us to sacrifice. So yeah, this is a lot of value for us. We also have some, well, other effects like White Plume Adventurer. Enters the battlefield, take the initiative. Nice. We have each month's upkeep, untap a creature control, play a dungeon, untap all creature control instead. So being able to, well, utilize again our commander on opponent's turns, that is absolutely massive. And if we can play that dungeon, sure, all of our creatures as well. We also have, one-off effects like 2 arms that can be great. Untap all creatures you control, draw a card, replace itself. Also untaps all of our creatures. This is absolutely huge to do. So again, the more and more and more that we can utilize our commander, the more value we get. And speaking of value, Thopter Shop, artifact for 3. Whenever one or more artifact creatures you control die, draw a card. It triggers only once each turn. It does not say non-token. So keep that in mind, because that is absolutely huge. And this also can actually make Thopters too. Pay 2 and a white, tap, make a 1/1 Thopter. So get those Thopters in play, or other artifact creatures in play. Tap, sacrifice them with our commander, make some treasures, draw some cards. Again, if we can untap our commander on our opponent's turns as well, like we talked about earlier, hey, that is not only 8 treasures in total of each trip around the table, but also 4 cards drawn too. Absolutely absurd. Also, speaking of absurd, some broken things can happen with Draw Scorpion. Yeah, there are certain combos that you can utilize with this commander. This says whenever another artifact creature is put in a graveyard from play, you may untap target artifact. We also have ways that we can turn our own commander into an artifact as well, so this could be a target for it. Yeah, there's different kinds of artifacts. Clock of Omens can help out as well when it comes to combos. There are certain combos you can utilize that are even on a budget with this commander, or you can just utilize like, a normal finisher like, say, Marionette Master. When I say normal, I mean absurdly powerful though. Fabricate 3, so if we need some servos, we can make those servo artifact creature tokens, or when the center's battlefield, we get 3 counters on this, which is usually what we're going to do, because it says whenever an artifact you control is put in a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. So basically, again, just at a base level, that is going to be 4 life loss per artifact sacrificed. So essentially, again, we tap with our commander, we sacrifice an artifact creature, we drain an opponent 4. We make 2 treasures out of that, again, which come to play untapped, so we can tap and sacrifice them right away for mana if we really want to do that. So we can drain an opponent, again, for another 4, another 4, basically 12 life drain for just 1 activation of our commander and utilizing those treasures. So that can be an absurd effect. There's tons of ways for us to take our opponents out. Again, there's combos, there's a lot of exciting things you can do with this commander. You don't have to combo. You can still win easily without combos too. A fantastic commander for a treasure-based strategy though. Next up, quite the fun commander. Well, maybe at least for you. I mean, your opponents, I'd enjoy playing against this one. Some players might not like when their things get taken, and they will quite often with this one, and you're going to get even more value out of that, so here we go. Dondre is the Renegade, a 4/3 Vampire Pirate for 4 in Grixis. Each creature you control but don't own gets +2/+2 and has Madness and Death Touch. It is a pirate issue to other types. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell you don't own, create 2 tap treasure tokens. That's what we're going to be focusing on. That is a huge effect. That is absurdly good. I mean, you could, of course, utilize both effects, but if you're focusing on a treasure-based strategy with this one, you're really going to want to focus heavy on that and ensure that you've got ways to steal your opponent's spells and cast them. Again, whenever you cast a non-creature spell you don't own, and there's plenty of ways to be doing just that. So, first up, how about Extract Brain? Source for X blue and a black. Target opponent chooses X cards in their hand. Look at those cards. You may cast a spell from one without paying its mana cost. So, yeah, I mean, maybe to make your choice based on what your opponent's decks are, essentially. If you're like, oh, yeah, they got a Spellslinger deck, cool. They're probably going to have a non-creature spell in it, or they got an artifact deck or an enchantment deck. Pick and choose. I mean, don't just pick, like, the Gruul player that's playing all the creature spells, most likely. But, yes, you probably have options where you can say, yeah, I'll put some mana into this. I'll cast your best spell out of your hand, essentially, and thank you. And I also get some treasure tokens back from that. Next up, Talon the Telepath. Target opponent reveals the top 7 cards of their library. Cast an instant sorcery for free, essentially. Leave the rest in their graveyard. If you have spell mastery, again, 2 or more instant cards in your graveyard, instant sorceries, you get 2 of those spells instead. So, yeah, this can essentially pay for itself if you hit that. And being able to do that, that is a massive play. Being able to just make 4 treasures while getting 2 of your opponent's spells for free, that is huge. Speaking of huge, though, Wand of Wonder. Yeah, if you roll right on this one, you're going to have a good time. Pay 4, tap, roll a d20. Each opponent exiles cards to the top of their library until they exile an instant sorcery card and shuffles the rest of their library. Cast up to X instant sorcery spells among them without paying their mana cost. 1 through 9 is 1. 10 through 19, 2. 20, oh my gosh, 3. Again, if you get that 3, you are gaining mana out of this. Again, you're putting 4 into this, tapping it, getting 3 spells for free, and getting 6 treasures for free too. Lovely. I mean, even if not, yeah, being able to do it at 1 is still great. Hey, you paid 4, you got 2 mana back essentially permanently. Not permanently, it's temporary mana, but still, you know what I mean. And then also, you got a free spell too. Yeah, you're right there. You get everything for free. It's an amazing card, an amazing effect with a commander like this. And speaking of amazing for a lot of reasons and a lot of situations, Atal, a Primal Storm. A 6/6 Elder Dinosaur for 6 mana. Did you need another reason to play Atal? Whenever it attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. You may cast any of her spells from one of those cards without paying their mana cost. Absurd value. Being able to play a spell off the top of your library for free is huge. Being able to play a spell off of everyone's library for free is massive. So yeah, being able to, again, if you hit instant sorcery off of each player's library, congratulations for your 6 treasures that you're getting, plus all that value that you're getting for casting all of that. Delirium Primordial, another creature that can really help us out. This one on ETB though, 5/5 Flying Avatar for 7. ETB for each opponent, you may cast up to 1 target instant sorcery card from among that player's graveyard while paying its mana cost. So basically, again, you can get, this does cost 7 to get into play, right? But maybe you've got a blink spell, you can abuse its effect anyways, but still, even if you're just paying that 7, and everyone's got an instant sorcery in their graveyard, congratulations, you got 6 of that mana back in treasures right away, on top of the value that you got, again, from casting those spells. That is absolutely huge. Speaking of huge, at 8 mana, but again, mana's not going to matter with this kind of a commander deck when you are getting all of these treasures. Fevered Suspicion at 8 mana sorcery. Each opponent exiles cards to the top of their library to the exile a non-land card. You may cast any number of spells from among those cards without paying their mana cost, and it rebounds so you to cast it again for free. Yeah, you might hit some creatures off this, that's fine, but by hitting those non-creature spells, you get a lot of free extra value on top of that. You might even pay for this spell, essentially, because of that rebound and casting it again. So yeah, 6 spells in total, potentially 12 treasures for free on top of all this value. Absolutely absurd. You can also utilize Synthesize Pod, though. An incredible effect. Yeah, you gotta activate it, but it's gonna be worth it. Pay 1 in a Phyrexian blue tap, exile a spell you control. Target opponent reveals cards to the top of their library until you reveal a card with mana value equal to 1 plus the exiled spell's mana value. Exile a card that player shuffles. Cast it without paying its mana cost. So again, choose the player that is playing the most non-creature spells most likely and hit them and say, you know what? I'd like to cast your spells, please. You hit a treasure. Congratulations. Or hit a treasure. You hit that non-creature spell. You get some treasures. You get your mana back, essentially. Maybe even more mana because it's 1 of Phyrexian. You can just pay 2 life instead of that mana, right? So yeah, you can go up on mana with something like this. Stolen Strategy, repeatable way as well. Champ for 5 mana, beginning of your upkeep. Exile the top of each opponent's library. Until end of turn, you may cast spells from among the exile cards. Spend mana as lower mana of any color to cast those spells. You probably don't even need that little part on it, you know, to be able to spend mana of any color because you've got treasures. They can help you fix your mana perfectly for those spells. And yes, being able to cast things off the top of your opponent's library can give you a lot of extra free value with this commander. And when it comes to finishing your opponents off, you might want to put them out of their misery after you just cast all their spells. Sure, Reckless Fireweaver is a good way to do it. Artifact enters battlefield under your control, 1 damage to each opponent. That means every single time you cast one of your opponent's non-creature spells, you are not only getting 2 treasures, you are dealing 2 damage to each and every single one of them. Perforos, eat your heart out. Well, I mean, it's kind of like in a different way, but you know what I mean. Anyways, being able to just deal damage to all your opponents so quickly with something like this can be absolutely absurd because you can always just like churn one spell into another, and do some absolutely crazy things. It's a really cool commander, one that is very budget friendly. Again, just 37 cents itself and works so well with a lot of budget friendly treasure cards as well. Moving on, though, at 23 cents, again, a lot of budget-friendly treasure commanders. We got Agnes, the Dragon's Lash, a 3/3 Viashino warrior with haste, Injund for 4 mana. Whenever a creature you control with haste attacks, create a tap treasure token. So simple, so effective, so easy being able to say, yeah, if I got a hasty creature, I'm going to be getting a lot of extra value out of that. So get aggressive, get out there, swing at opponents, and all of a sudden, you get rewarded for that. You get treasures. You get to then get other bigger things potentially out that can also swing right away with their haste and getting even more treasure tokens. Maybe you get some spells that let you do it again and again. There's a lot of exciting things that you can do with this one. And you can even include creatures that maybe don't have haste, like Impulsive Pilferer. But I'll tell you why. It's a 1/1 Goblin Pirate for a single red mana. When it dies, create treasure tokens. So that's nice. Some extra treasure support right there. On top of that, Encore for 3 and a red. Exiling it from your graveyard. For each opponent, you get a token copy that attacks that opponent this turn if able. It gains haste. Sacrifice begin next end step. Activate the sorcery. So basically, again, you Encore this out of your graveyard. You get 3 tokens that are swinging at each of your opponents with haste. So they each are going to be making a treasure. On top of that, when they die, you make a treasure. So with this Encore, you get 6 treasures in total thanks to your commander. Absolutely absurd. Moving on, Temp of Vengeance. Again, with all these treasures that you're going to be making, you can also just do some really big splashy spells like this one. Sorcery for X and a red. Tempting Offer. Create X 1/1 red elemental creature tokens with haste. Each opponent may create X 1 red elemental creature tokens with haste. For each opponent who does, create X 1 red elemental creature tokens with haste. That's a lot to say, but basically, hey, you make a bunch of tokens. Your opponents can make a bunch of tokens. If they do that, you make even more tokens with haste. So again, basically you're just dumping a ton of mana into this, getting a lot of hasty creatures out, and swinging maybe for even more than you put into it, essentially, making a lot of treasures in the process. Yeah, pretty absurd. Next up, Loyal Apprentice. Talked about this one earlier, but basically a repeatable free way, as long as you got your commander in play, to keep making hasty creatures, in this case, Thopters. Next up, Legion Warboss, or we can make hasty Gobos. A 2/2 Goblin Soldier with Mentor. At the beginning of combat, your turn, create a 1/1 Goblin with haste. Sorry, that token gains haste until end of turn. That's what matters right there. It attacks this combat if able. Next up, Flame Shadow Conjuring. Even again, if we've got a creature that has haste or doesn't have haste, let's get extra value out of it. Whenever a non-token creature is bound for your control, you may pay red. If you do, you get a token that's copy of that creature. The token gains haste at the exile beginning next end step. This can help you really take advantage of any ETBs, LTBs, any triggers. And also, yeah, just pay a single mana to essentially make a treasure token, because you're going to be getting a creature out that's a copy of another creature, and you can hastily swing with it. So have fun with that. Speaking of which, Jax is the Troublemaker, a repeatable way to do this. Pay a red, tap, discard a card, create a token's copy of a target creature you control, gains haste. When it dies, draw a card, sacrifice the next end step, activate only as a sorcery, being able to make a token copy of any of your creatures that is hasty, also replacing that card that you discard. It's kind of like a rummaging effect that also gives you a treasure in a way now, thanks to your commander. You can also blitz this out if you really want to get treasures in that way. Mirror March is a really fun, kind of random card that can give you a lot of treasure value too. Whenever a non-token creature is bound under control, flip a coin until you lose a flip. For each flip you won, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Those tokens gain haste. Exile begin next end step. Basically Flame Shadow Conjuring, but not paying and random, and maybe getting even more than one. So basically, again, for every single coin flip you win, you're going to be attacking with more creatures that are hasty and making even more treasure tokens on top of all that juicy value you're getting. Speaking of value, though, Hexplate Wallbreaker, yeah. Any kind of additional combat spell is going to be amazing with this kind of a commander, because again, if you got hasty creatures that are swinging, let's swing with them again. Make even more treasure tokens. This basically doubles up the number of treasures that you're going to be making from combat if your creatures survive combat. For Mirrodin, enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 red rebel creature token and attach to it. Creature gets +2/+2. When it attacks, first combat phase of the turn, untap each second creature. After this phase, will come phase. Basically, hey, you get an extra combat. That's basically what this means when you attach to a creature and you swing with that creature. So be aggressive, get extra combat, swing out, hit your opponents. Do it again, make even more treasure tokens. Yeah, this commander can get out of control in absolutely no time. There's a lot of avenues to victory, including extra combats as well. Yeah, a very, very budget-friendly, amazing treasure commander. And now the last one that I had to bring up. Yeah, with an amazing name. Jolene, the Plunder Queen. Love that name. Now, this commander is the most expensive that I'm bringing up today. It is $4.85. That being said, even if your commander is, $5 or so, the rest of your deck can very easily be $20 or less and still get to that $25 mark that I like to try to hit. A 2/2 Human Warrior for 4 mana in Gruul. Whenever a player attacks one or more of your opponents, that attacking player creates a treasure token. If you create one or more treasure tokens, instead create that many tokens plus additional treasure token. You can also sacrifice 5 treasures to get 5 counters on Jolene. Yeah, this is powerful. This is, incentivizing your opponents to swing at each other, which is lovely. Hey, yeah, go swing at each other. Make some treasure tokens. Good for you. But also, hey, when I do that, or when I make treasure tokens, I get an additional treasure token. That is absurd value, especially when you have repeatable treasure-making effects. Like even on a land, Mines of Moria. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary creature. So if we got our commander, great. Lancer's untapped. tap for a red, pay 3 and a red, tap, exile 3 cards from your graveyard, create 2 treasure tokens. But wait, again, with our commander in play, that is now 3 treasure tokens. That's a lot more value to be had. Basically, 1 treasure for each card we get rid of out of our graveyard. And yeah, just basically paying 4, I mean, technically kind of like 5 because you have to tap this land 2 mana to tap and make 3 treasures. That is absurd value. Strike it rich. Even a simple card like this, pay a single red, make a treasure token. Now all of a sudden that is doubly as effective. Make 2 treasure tokens. You can also flash it back to do it again. So this one singular card is going to make us 4 treasure tokens over time. Collector's Vault, repeatable way to do so. Pay 2 tap, draw a card, discard a card. So it's nice looting there. Create a treasure token again. Basically create 2 treasure tokens. We get our mana back, and also we can choose to use that mana whenever we need to with those treasures we're making. Gallagreators, a 1/1 elf druid for 1 and a green. When another creature has battlefield control, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Counter on it, tap treasure token, gain 2 life. Yeah, we're going to be making extra treasure tokens with this a lot. Again, this is a lot of value to be had. Next up, Guild Artisan. Commander creatures you own have whenever this creature attacks a player. If no opponent has more life than that player, you create 2 treasure tokens. So again, if our commander is the one attacking, and again, Jolene can be quite the force because we can sacrifice treasures to make it into a very, very heavy-hitting commander, and your opponents might be pretty wary of blocking because of that. Well, swing at a player with Jolene. All of a sudden, you're going to be making 1 from Jolene's trigger, which becomes 2, and also 2 from this, which becomes 3, as long as you're swinging at the opponent that has the most life, essentially, right? So yeah, this is a crazy good effect to pair with our commander. Next up, Captain Land Restore. We can also have other creatures that give us treasures on attack as well. When this attacks, create treasure token. When you sacrifice a treasure, +1/+0 until end of turn. So this commander can be aggressive, can also hit pretty hard as well, and is good in the 99 of this deck. Next up, Season Spoils. Very simple, very effective card. Discard 1 card, draw 2, make a treasure, which again becomes 2 treasures. So this might cost 3, but it basically just costs 1 because we are getting 2 of that mana back thanks to Jolene. Rose Room Treasure, kind of like a bigger Gallagreators, a 4/3 Ogre Warrior. Whenever the creature is battlefield under control, create a treasure token. If this is the first or second time this ability is resolved this turn, so again, counts more than 1. Otherwise, you can pay X. When you do, it deals X damage to any target, and then it becomes basically a giant X spell damage burninator effect. Absolutely love that. So utilize the treasures that you utilized, well, you know, that you made with Jolene to win. So yeah, there's a lot of good ways to win with this type of commander, and it really hypercharges your treasure making sources so quickly that things are going to get absolutely out of control, while things are already out of control because you're incentivizing your opponents to swing at each other, and then it's going to be too late. You're going to be taking them out with this commander, or again, some of your big effects. But yeah, at the end of the day, there's a lot of really amazing treasure commanders and a lot of amazing treasure decks. And there are a lot of really great ones on a budget. I hope that you learned that today. I hope that you're excited about one of these commanders or all these commanders, or maybe you already know about these. Maybe you already have a deck built around these. If you are interested in building a deck around these, if I could talk, make sure you check out that card list link in the description below for all the cards I talked about in today's episode, and consider picking some of those up. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.